the recording. So to give a little bit the general frame, it is, we said that we want to meet regularly, not just to talk about organizative stuff, but also to become more familiar with the concept of journalism for peace and nonviolence. And every time we want to like to take a little bit another aspect of this very broad field. And this time we would like to talk about this kind of conflicts where the situation is very stuck, where it's this vicious circle of violence, and which also are very polarizing. No? So like the Palestinian conflict, where it's, besides of all the violence, killings, human rights violations and suffering, it is also a topic that is very, very polarizing. So every time that happens something there, even outside of this area, everybody takes a side, defends or is pro-Palestinian or pro-Israel. And usually there is no really dialogue. It's like very emotional fight about who is the victim and who is the penetrated and who is the guilty. So these conflicts are very difficult, and I think there are no easy solutions. But I think how media's write about these issues matters, and how Presenza approaches this kind of conflicts is very important. Also our stance. So this could be a little bit the topic of today, to see on the Palestinian, based on the Palestinian conflict. And I'm very happy that our friends from Essence are here, because they can give you some insights. So in the first part, I will give immediately, I promise, the word to them. They can talk a little bit about their insights and experiences. And in the second part, we would like to open up the discussion so that everybody can express their thoughts and opinions and put questions or whatever. So yeah, thank you very much, Marianella and Evie, for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, we will try to be brief in order to leave space for dialogue. Personally, but I think that this is something that reflects both of us. I don't feel an expert in Israel-Palestine issue, so I'm not here to speak about, as an expert, to speak about this issue. My experience with this Middle East conflict started back in 2016, when Presenza received a proposal from the Palestinian Media Forum to be present in a panel concerning challenges in the way that Western media cover Palestinian issue conflict with Israel. So it was a little bit peculiar what happened there, because I went into almost a war zone. The panel was, the whole conference was held in Istanbul, in Turkey. So I went into a place that everybody has already chosen which part of the conflict stands for. So it was not very easy to go there and present our point of view. And also, till that time, we didn't know exactly our point of view. Because I understand that it's very easy, and we have been brought up since the 80s under the idea that Palestine territories are pushed, are shrinked. Israel army and Israel governments doesn't respect the international treaties. And I think that the prime minister of that period, the Greek prime minister of that period, Andreas Papandreou, was the first prime minister in Europe, if I remember, if not the first, one of the few first prime ministers that has invited officially Yasser Arafat in Athens and has in this way recognized the state of Palestine. So it was not easy for a Greek person to be there and not stand for what everybody in the room, all the media in the room, stood for. Of course, the way that I have chosen to represent Presenza there was not by opposing to anything, rather tried to broad a point of view that war doesn't bring any good to any side. And for some of the media, big media that they were present, war was the way that they live, were the way that they have been gaining advertising, gaining space in Western media. War, they lived from the war. So it was not very easy. I can share with you later on the speech, which is something not very fantastic, but try to say that we are going to find find any opportunity to focus on what the people say in both sides, to focus on peace, and to focus on initiatives that they will stand for peace and they will stand for reconciliation. And you will not find us very easily taking one or other place, side. Of course, recognizing that there are international treaties that the Israeli government, some Israeli governments, they don't respect. This is a little bit how I was engaged in this issue. Of course, in Greece, we feel that Middle East is very close. I think that we feel closer than other parts of Europe in this area, geographic and geopolitical area. And what is important is that at that period, I came in contact with two persons from the German editorial team of that time, Johanna and Ina, that they have been working a lot towards this issue. They had very strong, especially Ina, had very strong ties with peace initiatives in Israel, peace initiatives that they are both Arabic and Hebrew, with Hebrew people. So it was something like a common approach, a way that we write very often to each other. We try to follow very close everything that was happening towards this direction, mostly in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And in this team of the three of us at that moment, we were joined by a person that is no longer alive, Sylvia Sweden, a Jew nationality Chilean person that used to live in London at that period. And she always said that it would be important for us to focus on what unites people, not in the polarization. She stood for the two states, respecting the international treaties of 1967, but also she talked often about security, which is something that during our recent travel to Tel Aviv, it was also highlighted by some friends that we met there, that they want, at least the friends that we met in Tel Aviv, they told us that they want to, for the Palestinian people to have their own state, to live in peace, and also for them to feel safe and secure. We tried to formulate a kind of tips for people covering such conflicts. And I don't know if before reading them and discussing, giving the opportunity to discuss with you, if he wants to add something in this introduction.
Very briefly, I would like to say that it's a very different thing. I mean, I work as a history teacher in a Greek secondary school, and I have studied a lot about this conflict between Israel and Palestine. But it's a very different thing to study theoretically and to be in that place, because I traveled since March, last March, for 3 days. And I see actually lively all this cultural mosaic with these three religions, people from three religions intersection in a very thick line. Everything seemed to work, but everything is very, to a point, very easily from people from one side to cause problems to the other side. So it's a very, very lively area, but very easily for all this phenomenically peace to be teared down very easily. That's it.
You want to share the example in Jerusalem that we saw with the people of the different religions, where we had the opportunity to be there and see what they told us?
You can tell it.
Okay, anyway, the whole idea is that something that feels very homogeneous in a place is not. And in this particular place, and we refer most to Jerusalem, if I understand well, of course also Tel Aviv is a mosaic, but Jerusalem has also this background, the religious background, that it's not very, seems everything that it's okay, in order and fine, and they have the Knesset and they have everything there in order and police, but seems that different energies in the crowd, they are ready to burst out. And this is something that we have to bear in mind when we are very close to the borders and we are very close to cities that they have this kind of, let's say, charge, religious and political charge. So when we try to cover in Greece, when we try to cover what is happening in Palestine and in Israel, we have in mind the following issues. If we could try to make them in bullet points, in kind of bullet points. We try to distinguish people from governments. It's not very easy to say in Israel, this is what is happening. In Palestine, this is what is happening. Sometimes, or most of the times, governments and people are not the same. So this is something important to keep in mind. One thing is the government, and sometimes, most of the times, another thing is what is happening with the people. So our purpose when it comes, it's to denounce the government and policies that fuel the conflict, fuel violence, armament, and occupation. This is something we definitely do. We've tried to focus more on what the people say, and not so much on press releases, on government statements, etc. For example, we have a very close relationship with the ambassador of the Palestinian state in Greece, and he fuels us once a week with press releases, with his point of view, etc. We try not to upload what he says. We try to take the issues that he highlights and search more what is happening, try to give the voice to the local people of what is happening, and try to give them, yes, a place and a mean to express themselves on the current issues. Another thing is that we try to avoid the way the systemic or mainstream media cover the conflict, and they take obvious sides. For example, you know very well that Presenza works with media partners, and we have two media partners, one in the Middle East, no, two in the Middle East, sorry, and one in Greece, that they keep on giving content to us on things that they are very much polarized. So again, we try to take this and follow through Twitter, for example, the trend, see what the people say, see what the organization, local organizations say. Try not to just translate and upload what the systemic media talk about. Now, we try, it's not very easy, to examine the history of the conflict, because this conflict doesn't appear from one day to another. We always try to wonder who benefits from this conflict. We try to highlight examples of people, of activities, of events, of organizations that they promote peace and reconciliation. A very good example of that is to give voice to objection of consciousness, from different sides, to give speech, to give the floor for photographers and video makers to present a totally different angle of the images that we are accustomed to in the West. For example, we covered a photographer from Gaza that he focused more on daily life and what people feel, not only now with the COVID issue, but generally. We also try to avoid to highlight actions that they polarize. We try to bring in light aspects of the daily life, as I told you before, that doesn't always fulfill the role of the victim or the perpetrator. And finally, something that we learned from a media partner of ours, that it's called The Purple. It's a media partner from women activists, and they did a filmmaking 1.5 years ago, if I remember well, in the West Bank. And what they highlighted there, and we thought that it was very interesting and important, is to bring to light the inequalities inside of each state, not to focus only to the conflict itself between the two states, but also to what is happening in the societies concerning the issues of inequalities, of gender, of class, of stuff like that. So this is how we try. We are 5 of us that we work a little bit more focused on the Middle East and especially Israeli and Palestine issue. We have done some events here. We were planning more, and we were planning a mission in Palestine, but the pandemic came, and now we try to establish a better communication and a more fluent communication with people that we have already met during previous travels that we did in the area. So that's it for now. We are still learning. This is very important.
So is this the point, Marianella, where you already would like to give the floor for the exchange?
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, I just want to say, to welcome also Jagla. I don't know if I pronounced the name correctly. I don't know if she can hear us, which joined us, which I'm very happy about, because she maybe also can give us some insights later on. But until then, okay, let's see, anybody would like to ask something or to add, would like to have the word. Just go on. I think we are not so many.
Marianella, one short question. Did you have the feeling in these meetings that the others could understand the different point of view or approach of Presenza?
Well, in West Bank, they went two ladies that are not present here. And when they came back and we discussed that, they said that the whole situation is very heavy. It's not very easy to talk about initiatives for peace and reconciliation, because what is happening and what they have witnessed daily, it's very hard. Restrictions, bombing, different things. But I think that the people want to see light. The people want to understand, want to find ways for solutions. And something that this is not going to go public, no? we will record it and just internally. Okay.
Yes, it will be possible to see if somebody joins the YouTube channel. It's not completely hidden, but it also won't be published as an article.
So I will make it as a general comment. Yeah. Recent contacts with people that they live in West Bank said to us that there is a lot of censorship from the part of the Palestinian government too, about what they are supposed to say, what they are supposed to communicate, especially with media abroad, Western media or media out of Palestine. So this is also important to keep in mind, that it's not only what they want or what they feel, but it's also what is allowed to discuss, allowed to bring outside of the state. And I think this is not something that is happening only to Palestine. Of course, Israel is a little bit more liberal in some ways, but I think that also there is a kind of difficulty, not exactly a censorship maybe there, but a pride to the nation, something like that. But it's not very easy, it's not very, very clear what they aspire, what they want, and what they are allowed to say.
Okay, I would have another question for you. Thank you for the input already. What were the biggest challenges, or what are the biggest challenges, in your opinion, that journalists face in the field while working?
Maybe to build the personal connections with people that trust you, and they will feel safe about what they say. Maybe this is from my point of view.
And another one is to try to be balanced. Try to be balanced is it's a daily challenge, because you have information that comes from some sources, and it's hard because it's an information that concerns wooden people, conflict, displacement. So it's not very easy not to enter in this tube, let's say, and to try to denounce it because it is happening, and it's important to say things about that, but in a way that it's not very polarized, because it's something between governments and between armamentism power I'm not so sure that it's something that has to do exactly with the people or all the people, because also people is not something united, no? There are different expressions. But also what's safe is important. We try to locate people that we want to set some kind of liaison that will continue within the time. We want to establish offices of Presenza there. And this is also a challenge. But it's also, at the same time, it's something very, very interesting. We aspire to do it, both in Tel Aviv and in the West Bank.
Okay, thank you.
You just said you want to have offices there, you want to open offices. What does it mean to have offices there? So,
yeah, I didn't say it very well. No, of course, not offices, because we don't have offices generally around the world. I mean, first of all, start to have some stable corresponders. And then, little by little, the idea is to create autonomous editorial teams, exactly as we have in Athens, as you have in Germany, in Munich, Berlin, different other cities. And so, of course, I cannot deny that one of our ideas in the future is to count with Arabic as a language in Presenza, which is not very easy because none of us speaks Arabic, and it's a little bit difficult. But it's something that this is a second level of aspiration that we have.
Okay, that was going to be my question, if there are any plans to have Presenza in Arabic or in Hebrew even.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
But it's a second step, no, or a third one, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just to add, you know, these things like new language is happening. That's usually based on the initiative of some of our volunteers who feel like, yeah, we want to make this happen. No. I also would like to put the question just to raise the topic of gender, Marianella, because I know from Ina and also Johanna that their projects, they are very strong based on women. Maybe you can tell a little bit more about the role of women in this, or hopefully peace process.
Yes, some projects that we have been covering in Presenza since many years, they are from Jerusalem. They are based in Jerusalem, and there we have strong women that they participate. And this is very interesting. I think this is a sign of the time, of our times in general, maybe, not only in the Middle East. But what our partners were exploring are the gender inequalities in West Bank. And that was something very interesting because it's an Arabic world. Inequalities happen in the Arabic world. And it is interesting to highlight, to bring this issue in a nation, in societies, that they want freedom. So, okay, let's talk about freedom then. Freedom is not only to have your own flag or your own territory. Freedom is more things. You have the freedom of speech, of expression, which is, as I told you before, in a little bit difficult situation, and not only in Palestine. We have the freedom of women to choose and shape their own future. We have freedom of LGBT people. I mean, we have this kind of issues that it's very interesting when a society talks about freedom to open also those issues. And show to them that not only the Israeli government has to do things in order to make people free and enable them to create their own future, but also The Palestinian government has to do things for the people that they live in the society concerning issues of freedom. I hope you can understand my English.
It's always good if nobody is native. So
Yes.
Yeah, in general, the topic is, as you might know, very is it the correct word, sensitive here in Germany, or it's very delicate? Yeah, very delicate here, in a sense that if you talk something pro-Palestinian or criticizing Israeli politics, then you are immediately under danger to be called anti-Semite and something like that. And on the other hand, if you are criticizing or maybe putting a relativisieren, how to say this, relativize, or the Palestinian part, like saying, okay, it's not good to be violent, or as you said, something maybe not working inside the Palestinian society and so on, then you are criticized by a whole bunch of organizations who are pro-Palestinian, and they say, yeah, you cannot relativize this, you have to be clear with your message and so on. So this is also very difficult. So we normally choose not to publish anything about this, or only very humble things like, okay, if you have a kind of meeting of organizations talking about peace and reconciliation, this is nothing to be against, yeah. But you cannot take some kind of standpoint about the issue. So have you more or experience about publishing, or in which sense to choose correct topics for publishing in Presenza?
Okay, let's take an example that it's very common, and I think it's a representative one. The BDS movement. The BDS movement is a movement that promotes the boycotting Israeli products, Israeli events, Israel, boycotting Israel. When we open the book, let's say, of active nonviolent actions, we are going to see that boycotting is inside. It's a very well known and very well promoted action, the boycotting. No, so I mean the movement of boycotting Israel. It's something that we try to cover, but not exactly be their
as a press representative.
Yes, not exactly be the press representative of the movement. No, there are some activities that they are interesting. For example, we had a very well-known Israeli philosopher in Athens some months ago that he gave a very nice speech in the university, following a very concrete narrative against the Israeli government. We covered it, we covered the whole speech he had, and the speech is in English. You can also find it in our YouTube channel of Presenza Athens, Presenza Greece, sorry. But we don't try to publish everything that the BDS movement says, because we know very well that this creates polarization. When we went to Tel Aviv and we discussed with a very good friend of ours, a guy that lives in Tel Aviv, he is a Jew and a very well-known friend for many years, he talked in favor of the BDS movement, and he is an Israeli. So you see that, okay, we choose to cover the BDS movement, but not everything. We are not the BDS movement media. We try to cover the annual event and the preparation towards the annual event that they do in Jerusalem, and it's been done among people from that they live in Israel, and they are Arabs and Hebrews. And before the Trump shifting the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, they were also invited in this event people from the West Bank. After the shift of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the situation went very hot, and they have decided not to join. So we covered these issues. We covered the issues for the deal of the century, for example, Trump's proposal for a negotiation and peace, according to his point of view, for the Middle East conflict, the Israeli-Palestine conflict. We covered it against. We try to take interviews from both sides. When we present something from one side, we try to also have another interview from the other side. This kind of balance between denouncing what is happening, but not be a voice for polarization, and bring light to daily life of the people. Now, for example, we published recently, 2 days ago, yesterday, we published an interview of a young girl, educated young girl from Palestine, that she talked about what happened with the pandemic, which is an issue that usually they don't talk about. When people have in mind Israel and Palestine, they have in their mind the conflict, not the consequences of the pandemic, or what is happening with the objection of consciousness, for example, or other issues, like I said before, the gender issues, etc.
It's an article that very soon will be in the translation list anyway. just to mention for the translators here. No,
they have work to do.
It's unfair. No,
but at the beginning, I experienced this fear that Harald talks about. And what we have decided is that we will enter in the issue. We will deal with the issue. We will not be afraid of being mentioned as anti-Semitic or pro-Palestinians or terrorists or whatever, no? It doesn't matter. There are people that they think that we are very soft, and there are other people that they think that we are anti-Semitic, because during the first World March for Peace and Nonviolence that took place back in 2010, and it was, as you may know, the central issue that Presenza appeared. One of the guys, one of the personalities, not the guys, that stood for this World March was Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is a very interesting philosopher, very well known. But when you are in favor of what Noam Chomsky says, and worse, when Noam Chomsky stands for what you do, you are an anti-Semitic. So, okay, we are also in the conflict. We are there, and we don't mind. We try to find our exactly where we stand in this issue, and not being afraid to deal with the issues. We know very well in our minds and in our hearts that we are not anti-Semitic, and we are not terrorists. So it's okay.
I think anyway in this issue you can do what you want anyway. You are getting criticized, but I mean personally, from just now really from my side, I'm really also all this topic, and especially for example BDS for me is a very difficult issue, and I would say tiptoeing around it. Probably you don't know, or maybe you are aware that the Deutsche Bundestag declared BDS as officially anti-Semitic and something that has to be go against and boycotted. So, and I mean, just this issue, no, you are immediately in this polarization and in this discussion where you end up like one's throwing dirt to each other, and it's very I feel it very difficult. But I like very much this to have very clear in mind, not to be the voice of anyone, but to have to cover the issue. And I think we should do this more often and more clear in German when it's about this issue. I know that these virtual meetings are not so not so animating to express opinion or to join the conversation, but feel free to just to voice your opinion or whatever. Go on if you want to talk, please.
I can speak from my own experience. I'm joining this meeting for the first time, so I hope the things I'm addressing are fine. But I just recently graduated, and during my MA in journalism, I also went to Tel Aviv and to the Palestinian territories in the West Bank. And during for our assignment at uni, we had to create a website and write some feature articles. And I just wanted to write about a personal experience because I'm an Austrian citizen, but my parents are Turkish Kurdish, therefore I have a Turkish name. And when I arrived at the border in Tel Aviv, I was asked, when they saw my passport, they asked me where I'm from, and I said, well, it's quite obvious, I guess, from Austria. And the officer asked me what my dad's name was and what my grandpa's name was, and as they sounded quite Turkish or kind of Muslim, they asked me to wait in the waiting area. I think that's how they called it. And I was there with a couple of other people, like another girl, like half Greek, half American and Egyptian was there, who had an American passport, but as she had kind of roots in Egypt, she was there as well. And I thought, like, I've been traveling a lot with my Austrian passport. It was never an issue, but arriving in Israel with an Austrian passport but with Middle Eastern roots really I really had an issue with this, and they also took away my passport and I had to wait for 4 hours. And it was really, that was not the only experience, but it started with this at the airport. And I just wanted to write an article on, how you're an European citizen with Middle Eastern roots, what it means to go to Israel. And I told my tutor about it, and he didn't really encourage me to write this because he said at the beginning of my career, and I just don't want to make enemies, especially not, I don't want to have the wrong enemies, people in power. and I felt it was really, I don't know how to say, but it was really disencouraging for me because I just wanted to write a personal experience, and I just asked myself how people like Trump can say racist things on TV and can't be charged with anything. And I just wanted to talk about a personal experience and how this could get me into trouble. And I think that is an issue because I don't know how it is with other countries and talking about or challenging their politics and politicians, but I feel like especially in Israel, it is, I don't know, it's quite tough for us always to think we can't say this and we can't say that. Yeah, that gave me really an issue.
Only to add, but for example, for China is somehow similar, I guess.
Okay.
So how did it end? You never wrote the article at all, or you didn't publish anything?
Well, the only thing that Presenter had published from me was my article on the missing dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians. Because when I was there, I just thought, like, how should these people find peace and a solution if they do not communicate with each other? Like, it doesn't help if people outside the country's borders are talking about their future and about how to solve their problems. And yeah, so I kind of changed the angle, and I didn't write about my personal experience at all at the moment, but I just tried to, yeah, have something, I don't know how to say, but yeah, just to get something out of my experience and show it to other people and share it with others.
I did put the link to your article in the chat.
Thank you.
We haven't managed yet to translate it to English, but very soon. I think it's a very interesting one anyway.
Thanks a lot.
Well, just to say that we also had, we were very well informed that we are going to pass through a little bit difficult moments in the borders, which, okay, it was not like passing the borders of Europe, customs of Europe, but mostly where we went, it was okay. Some questions, a little bit the idea, where are you going to live, very persistent in some aspects. They are a state with the army in their blood, with surveillance in their blood, no? In a way, let's say in their blood. It's not in their blood. It's the way that they live. The army is a very big part.
I understand that, but knowing that my two other Austrian friends who were doing an exchange program in Israel weren't asked these questions and didn't have to wait for 3 to 4 hours, made me definitely feel different. And also when I wanted to travel back to the UK, they put out everything from my hand luggage. And I also bought a package of biscuits, and they took a needle and checked if that one was all right. And I had my camera with me, and they tried to turn it on, but I was hiding my memory card before because we were doing couch surfing in Hebron and Nablus, and people there told me, like, you shouldn't have these photos. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna delete them. So I was hiding the cards in my shoe. But the fact that they were checking everything and even tried to turn on my camera, I definitely felt like this is a weird situation. Like, this never happened to me. And yeah, I do understand your point. I I get the fact that they kind of have a different approach to things, but for me it was still kind of racist because of my roots, because I have the same passport as my Austrian friends, but just because I do not look typical Austrian, I was questioned these things, and that wasn't nice.
Okay, maybe as not a Middle East expert, but if I can say something to this, that what Marianella said in one point is like the politics isn't the same as the people, no? And I think as we experienced, for example, in other places, in other moments also, it's like fear is a powerful tool, and it is really very well and intentionally used. I mean, I just remember with the issues of the terrorist attacks, no? Where suddenly you with all these controls, there is created a climate of fear, and that people try to be suspicious to each other. So I think this is always also a tool to divide the people, and very often it's also working, no? Very well, that it gets installed in the people and then continuing with a look. But the important thing is to understand that it is not the people itself. It's a system that we are living in that produces this within and among the people, no? And to try to overcome this system, which is completely inhuman. No, it doesn't look at people like what they are. It's putting them in boxes and labeling them.
And as some of you studying in the university, those issues know better than me, at least. It is a region that has suffered different influences. And at the moment, we have very powerful lobbies at the area. Apart from the American lobby, that is very well known, we have the Arab League, that they play in a very in different ways all the time. They are not always the same. They don't always back Palestine, etc. We have the Turks, you know very well, the way that they want to influence in the area, etc. We have the Russians. I mean, it's a very specific part of the planet where different lobbies with different interests, they keep on investing in this conflict in different ways. And this is something that we always have to bear in mind, and always not to see just the news, what happened, no? But also what the lobbies are doing and how they maintain for their own interests, specific interests, and changing interests also, this chess in the area.
We are, okay, we have now reached 1 hour of the meeting. Last meeting, I was told that I shouldn't exceed this 1 hour limits. So I have a proposal, so we can hear, like, maybe with a final sentence or something, like finalize the official part of the meeting. So everybody who would like then to leave is free to leave. Maybe we can make a short break. And if somebody wants to stay and to have a little conversation more, then is free to stay if you still have time. What do you think about that? Sounds good?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we can ask for if there's still some specific question left. And if not, we can maybe ask Marianella to close the official part.
I want to say, or to ask, it was good to get an input on what Presenza has done and how you in Greece, at least, have tried to cover the issue so far, like show both sides, cover different things from different angles. But I wonder what it means for Presenza as a whole. How will we publish articles? What will we write? So what are the things we will do in other countries as well? That's probably the question everybody has, right?
Yeah, in a sense, yes, but for sure, at least from my perception, Presenza has clear grounds like principles and so on, but is not in the strategy or tactics is not monolithic. So every language editorial team or country editorial team may decide on themselves how to cover specific issues. So I think it's not possible to give us, apart from the general philosophy, let's say, to be for nonviolence and peace and something more we have seen in the last meeting. I think there is no specific directive we could give how to handle these specific points.
I think it's a very good guideline what Marianella gave us, so that how we could start to write more, no? Like I mean, these informations like press releases, they are around, which highlights the issues, and then try to connect with people there, or to highlight on the issue itself, and not just on the conflict. So I think people who would like to start to do that should just start to try and also have an exchange. And we also have the possibility, and we do this especially in such issues like which are so conflicted and difficult to have a clear line, that we also have international lists where it also can be like you can get feedback. We can also discuss among us or with other peoples, or with Marianella and certain people who are more within the fields, and to work out these articles until the point that we think, okay, that's a good thing. I mean, like this we should publish. So I think if one or some of you feel that they would like to follow up and to start to cover more this issue, I think we should talk about this and do that, definitely. I don't know if this is the answer to your question, Laura.
No, but yeah, it is the answer to the question. The question was more, is there a goal to have more coverage, to have more articles? And like you said, we can have it as a goal if we want to, and if there's someone who will do it. So yeah, I think you answered the question.
I think we should write more from the German team about this issue, and also we can support this intent from the Greek edition to establish roots within the communities there, and to have people to write, and then of course to take these articles and to translate it to German, no? So that this also is again reproduced. So I think this is what we can do, no?
And in order to help, what we can do is to make like a page in which we can add some of the articles in English that can be read, and they can give not exactly our point of view, but interesting points of view concerning the issue. The newspapers and the media partners that we use in order to understand and cross-check what is happening, and some concerning some news, and also some of the trends that we follow in Twitter, which are also interesting, some threads that we follow in Twitter. And by this way, help in the best way that we can, research and publishing and editing articles from the German redaction.
Great. I think that's also a very good closure for the meeting. If there is not a very burning question or an opinion that has to be voiced. So let's stop here the official part.